to Behind the Wall, our look at critical issues emerging out of China, and none more pressing this week than a Chinese report that showed the country's policy of transferring Uyghurs to labour programs from Xinjiang is designed to thin out and assimilate the ethnic minority. The government denies accusations of forced labour, saying the transfers are voluntary, but the study reveals their policy is a long-term measure to influence, melt and assimilate Uyghur minorities. Now, this report by Nankai University was accidentally published online. It was subsequently taken down in mid-2020, but not before a copy was archived by Senior Fellow in China Studies at the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, Dr Adrian Zenz. He joins me now from Minneapolis. Appreciate you getting up so bright and early for us. Firstly, tell us how you came across this report.
I was alerted to this report, excuse me, by a Uyghur activist who was sending me a whole cache of files. And I was sorting through it and noticed this particular document, which was saved as a PDF. Once I realized its significance, I immediately saw if it was still available online and if its existence could be proven, and linked to the university that claimed to publish it. And sure enough, there it was. And so I was able to archive it and also not only have the document, but proved the link to Nankai University, to that particular department and to the authors.
So those authors were responsible for this policy that China now has put in place?
No, the authors were academics who were researching the policy and its impact. But one of them was a former senior government official. The others were high-ranking academics. They had privileged, unprecedented access to the region in Xinjiang. They were researching how the project works, how the labor transfer works, and they also provided a commentary on the context surrounding it, including that it serves to thin out the population, reduce population density, and assimilate the Uyghurs. And of course, the words coming from such high-profile people, this is by far the strongest proof yet that we have of the coercive nature of the labor export of Uyghurs throughout China.
So in your mind, Adrian, is there any doubt when you have studied that report that this policy does amount to forced labour and persecution of the Uyghurs?
There's no doubt at all. Now, even before that, we had significant evidence. Several studies were published. I, in the meantime, was also able to gather increasing evidence from public government websites and studies published there. This document now puts all the stones together and says, look, yes, it's all happening because it's so comprehensive. Previously, we had one piece here, one piece there, a hint at coercion, maybe something stronger about coercion. Now it's like all in one place.
And interestingly, a lot of what the previous studies had shown us were these re-education camps that the Uyghurs were sent to. But this shows a more complicated process of removing people from Xinjiang, sending them to labour camp or, into forced labour, and thereby removing them from their homes, thinning out the population. How effective do you believe that policy has been?
I think the policy has probably been very effective because Xinjiang operates two distinct systems of forced labor. One is directly linked to the internment camps where people are graduating. They're being released from the internment camp and shifted immediately into factory labor. Sometimes on the same compound, oftentimes they're right next door. The labor transfer system is much bigger than that, and it's also coercive, it's also forced labor. It affects people who live out in society. Well, it's the police state. It's an open-air prison. They're being scooped up and recruited by government work teams. And about 20 to 30% of them in southern Xinjiang, the Uyghurs, are being torn out of their communities and are being transferred to industrial sites in northern Xinjiang, so in the same province that are dominated by the Han Chinese mostly, and are much more industrial. And a smaller percentage, but in parts up to 10 or 12%, are exported outside to eastern China. And that really uproots the Uyghurs. It really changes the whole composition. But one of the new findings of my report, besides this document, is a new clandestine plan of the government, never published about before and not described anywhere before, to bring an additional 300,000 Han Chinese settlers into southern Xinjiang. It's like a population swap. You take the Uyghurs out and you plant the Han Chinese in. So we have reinforcing material even beyond the leaked Nankai report that just shows the whole demographic strategy that's being implemented.
That's extraordinary. And do the 300,000 Han Chinese that have been relocated there have any choice in the matter?
They certainly would have a choice. They're being offered financial incentives, free land to farm, free education. They're being offered substantial benefits. And we actually know about these recruitment notices. We have seen the advertisement. Many of them even get free housing, nice newly built housing. But we did not know the scope, the planned scope. We did not have that 300,000 figure and that it was such a systematic plan to complement the labor transfer. So there's complementary things going on, and we're just really, this whole research on Xinjiang, it's such a real-time tracking of this atrocity. We're constantly finding out new information, and it's just getting worse and worse.
Yeah, it is so disturbing. But now the Foreign Ministry has attacked you very openly, named you, claiming that you've fabricated this information. Are you in any doubt about its veracity and its currency in the fact that you're talking about it in real time?
Anybody can read these documents themselves. Anybody can verify their source because they're web archived. The web archive does a timestamp. It's a reliable source. It can only archive websites that actually are live at the time, and it reliably documents the source. It's used by any professional researcher. Also, accompanying media outlets who reported on the same story that I involved in this reporting, the BBC, outlets from Canada, France, and Germany, they all looked at the same document. We studied it together, and my institution had a full translation done of it. So what else can the Chinese government do than try to attack me as a person if they cannot attack the facts?
But you have, yeah. Talking of your BBC reporting with the BBC World, of course, they have now been prevented from broadcasting in China. These are remarkable, this is remarkable evidence that you've uncovered, but it doesn't give the international community much help in dealing with China's denial of what is happening.
Well, the international community has to act on the facts as they are clear. We also have Uyghur witnesses who have come forth. We have Uyghurs and Kazakhs who were able to escape the region and who testified, yes, we were recruited and conscripted into forced labor, or we were in a camp and then shifted into forced labor. It is not anymore the time for the international community to contemplate, oh, do we have enough evidence? Oh, what is really going on? Yes, we can always do more research, but the urgent need is for some sort of action and intervention. And no better place to start than forced labor, because it allows consumer awareness, business awareness, and governments to say, actually, we cannot import this. We have to take measures. There's an urgent need for perhaps an expanded legislation for new frameworks to combat forced labor. And that's one thing that could actually make a difference in terms of this atrocity.
Yes, because you've also identified some of the labels that might be using the factories that are using this forced labour. Really fascinating reporting and such important work. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.